Hello, everyone, and welcome to this. I'm going to say this month because no matter how much I try, there's never episodes coming out any sooner than that. Today, we are talking about postpartum psychosis. And I guess it's good for me to just offer a bit of a trigger warning at the beginning of this session for anyone that, might be triggered by that subject or any of their experiences. I am really, really lucky to be joined by Jade Lloyd, who, for those of you, and I bet a lot of you that are listening, follow Happy Mum, Happy Baby podcast. Giovanna Fletcher's podcast was recently on that. And we were actually already connected on social media. And then I saw Jade on there and jumped straight into her DMs and said, come on the podcast. And you've very kindly agreed. So Jade, could you want to introduce yourself to everyone?
Oh, thank you for having me. So I'm Jade. I had postpartum psychosis in 2021. I was diagnosed with it 4 months after the birth of my daughter. And I was admitted to a mother and baby unit, and I was there for a month, and I was sectioned whilst I was there as well. I did sadly experience a relapse in January 2024. And I've just been kind of on a mission for the past year to raise awareness and get people talking. I didn't really know that postpartum psychosis existed. So when it did happen to me, I was so kind of shocked. And I remember just being like, what has just happened? And why did no one tell me about this? And I just want to help to break the stigma as well that people might feel if they have gone through it too.
Yeah, I mean, we had a brief conversation before and we were talking about stigma. And I guess a lot of the reasons that this podcast exists is because of that, because there are so many illnesses that people, A, don't really know much about, and B, there is stigma, whether we like it or not. Sometimes even being a mental health nurse, I used to get, stigma around that form of nursing. But postpartum psychosis in particular, and psychosis generally, I think is a world that people don't know much about. And like with any long and enduring or acute illnesses, until these things happen to you, you don't know about them. And then you've got to get over the shock and then learn all about it as well, haven't you? I guess after your experience, if you're within an illness, that takes your capacity away as well.
Yeah.
And something that really struck me about your experience listening to that episode was how, first time mum, I mean, mums anyway, in the first year of their lives, their postpartum, life, I guess it is a life, isn't it?
Yeah.
You're the most vulnerable you ever are. You've got the biggest hormone drop you'll ever receive as a mum. Having COVID on top of that, like you said, we didn't know anything different, but looking back now, we know what we missed out on with COVID. And I guess throwing a huge condition into the mix of that as well was just, it must be indescribably hard for you to put into words, but you do it so beautifully. I was just amazed by your insight and the way and your ability to recall and remember some of your experiences, because I know, when I've cared for some patients within the 15 years of my practice, the women that experience postpartum conditions are some of the most unwell women I've ever treated. And, to recover from that, and we're going to talk about your recovery, a bit more in this episode, but to get through that, recover from it, as much as you can, and then use your time now to raise awareness and speak to others in the same position. I know you go back and volunteer at the unit. Like the level of bravery and admiration that I have for you is amazing. So I just want to say that straight away. I just think what you're doing is incredible, and you should be so proud.
Thank you. That's really kind.
So I don't want you to have to go into all of the details, because I know you did that quite recently. But I think it would be really helpful for those that maybe haven't listened to that podcast for you to give like a brief overview of your story in terms of the journey at that point postpartum.
Yeah, so I had quite a long labour, so it was nearly 3 days, and I probably, looking back, I don't think I was really okay from birth.
Right.
But I think it was because I'd heard so much about baby blues, I kind of put it down to that. And because as well, like the delivery was quite traumatic. So I felt it was like, I didn't even really know about birth trauma as well. And I think
No, a lot of
I
people don't.
know. And even now, I think I remember thinking, well, I didn't have birth trauma because it
Didn't know what it
wasn't.
was.
No, I thought, well, I didn't lose a load of blood. It wasn't what I would picture to be traumatic. But looking back and going through work with a psychologist, like I did have birth trauma. Like it was a traumatic delivery for me. And I think it's individual for every person.
Yeah.
So I don't think I started off postpartum in the best way because of it being such long labor. I'd already started that kind of journey, sleep deprived. And then like the weeks followed, I didn't think anything was massively wrong. Because I'd really loved Penelope, I really felt connected to her, but I started feeling such an intense love that I didn't really know what to do with it. And
Yeah.
it was then bringing on quite severe anxiety, and it was anxiety that was focused around her well-being, whether she was, going to, I can't remember, that you might be able to help me think of what's the thing where they get a rash and then you can put the glass on it? I can't think of what it is.
Meningitis? No, is
Yes.
it? No.
Is it
the
that?
meningitis test with the glass.
Yeah. So I remember.
Might have got that wrong. When you can see it, but you can't.
Yeah, I think that might be it. But anyway, it was a rash that they said if they have that, then it can be fatal. And I think I just kept worrying that was she had
A
it.
bit fixed on that. Yeah.
Yeah, and then I kept worrying that she would come into harm in some way. I remember looking at her and thinking, gosh, you're so vulnerable and there's nothing stopping anybody, including myself, hurting you. And then I feel like those voices kind of got a bit louder in my head, those thoughts and feelings. Then it was my 6-week check. My mum knew that I was struggling and she encouraged me to say something to the doctor when I was at the appointment. And I did, but she kind of just brushed me off and just told me to go and speak to my health visitor. So, and I remember coming out of that and it took so much courage for me to ask for help. And I felt really deflated and I thought like, well, maybe I'm not as bad as what I think I am.
Yeah, I was going to say, it can take a lot for it, even when you're, not feeling great in your mental health and you haven't got a newborn and you're not in that postnatal period. It can take a lot for you to say, my mental health isn't great anyway, let alone if you're going for this appointment. I think there's a lot of focus on the baby. And and I'm not surprised you left feeling deflated and questioning whether maybe I am all right then, because they didn't seem too worried.
Yeah. And I just thought, like, okay, I'll speak to my health visitor. And so I did that. I reached out to her. She came out to see me. And she's, I think I didn't think that I'd had postnatal depression. I just felt really anxious. And because I'd had anxiety before having Penelope, I was like, that's what it is. And yeah, I said to her, like, is there anybody I can talk to? And she said, oh, well, no. I'd asked her for help and she said, if you can afford private, then I would go private. And she kind of signaled to our house and was like, in a way of like, well, considering like you can afford private, like, so go and do it that way. And I remember feeling like immediately guilty that I'd even asked for help. And I was like, gosh, like, okay, like I'm not deserving of help or whatever, like I shouldn't have asked.
Sometimes I do hear about things like that being said. I know sometimes the birth reflection service locally can be up to like 2 years wait. And then people have said, that's going to be too long for you. And then so that might be the route that people have to take. But it sounds like it was more in the context of, your objective feelings that you were feeling then, just being quite dismissed. And also just no matter your wealth or what, you know, any social circumstances, everyone has a right to access the National Health Service as well. Like that's, yeah, I mean, that's wild, isn't it? That,
Yeah. I can completely appreciate that. But like you said, like I think everyone should have access to the help. And, at this point,
yeah,
I didn't really understand what was going on for me. And so
yeah,
when I was looking for private help, I didn't really know what I was looking for. I didn't know.
yeah, of course. You needed guidance
Yeah.
postnatally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And at that time, I didn't know that there was a perinatal mental health team, which to me now, and is why I'm so kind of passionate about
It's crazy.
raising awareness and being a maternal mental health advocate, because I wish I knew that that was a possibility. I could have advocated for myself.
Everyone should know.
Yeah.
Yeah, everyone should know what's
I don't
there.
know why it wasn't ever said to me, when I was pregnant, that if you do struggle, we do
Yeah,
have a team that can look after you. Um, and
yeah,
yeah, so that kind of that time, time had passed, and at this point it got really bad, and I started experiencing suicidal thoughts. Um, and I knew, I was like, this isn't okay. Like I need to reach out for help. So then I reached out to our local kind of counselling service through the NHS, and I got a phone call with them, and I said, I'm really struggling. I'm a new mum. I am experiencing suicidal thoughts. I just don't want to be here anymore. And she asked me a few questions, asked if I had friends that I could speak to and family support. And I said that I did. And she asked if I had private therapy booked in. And at that time I had, because that's what my health visitor had told me to do.
yeah.
Yeah, she said, oh, because you've got private therapy booked in and you've got friends and family to support you, like we can't help you. Would you like to carry on this conversation? And I just remember thinking like, oh my God, no, I don't want to carry this conversation on.
It's a really weird thing to say to someone as well. Like, it should be the other way. Like, you should be saying to me, but let's carry on this conversation,
Mm,
even if you do have therapy booked in, because there's a responsibility as that mental health practitioner to explore your immediate risk
mm,
at that time and see if anything's needed sooner. Like,
yeah.
yeah, it's
And like
crazy.
now as well, like, I've learned that the leading cause of death in new mums is suicide.
Mm.
And like you said, like if these mums are reaching out and you're just telling them that you can't provide them with support, you don't know what then that mum she's going to come off the phone. You don't know what's going to happen. And I just think,
The impact of
yeah,
that.
like we
Yeah.
shouldn't be, we've come so far, I feel, in mental health in general, but I think there's still so much that we need to learn around
Yeah.
maternal mental health. And we're at such a
Yeah.
vulnerable state anyway. Like, you've gone through such a big change physically and emotionally. You've then got this baby who needs you. And why are we not giving support the way that it should be? Why do these health professionals, why are they not educated in the way that they should be as well? And
I felt that in elements of my journey. I remember when I got Arlo's diagnosis, and it was like no one really knew what it was. And I was shocked about that because there is a lot of people in the UK with it. But also, it made me feel so isolated. But no one was like ringing me and being like, are you okay? You've just had this huge bit of news. Like, and it was like, how are we not as a system, if any woman has been given any diagnosis of any sort for their child or for them,
mm,
pre or post birth, how is there not things in place where we are providing them with someone who's educated around that topic, who, if they're not, will get educated before they speak to you? Like, gaps in communication and reassurance are still present
mm,
now, for sure.
yeah, yeah, it's really sad, isn't it? I think for
Mm.
for such a big, I think I looked yesterday and there's 600,000 to 700,000 babies born every year in the UK. And
Hmm.
these mums are vulnerable and these babies are vulnerable.
Yeah, every single one.
And I think it's just, yeah, it's wild to me that we're not kind of making sure that mums are cared for in the way that they should be postpartum.
Yeah, there's a lot out there at the moment, isn't there, with the maternity, all the reports
Yeah.
and the changes, refreshingly it's being talked about, and that's great. But I keep thinking, amongst all these news reports and the reports, there are mums every day, pregnant or postnatally, that need help now and are probably feeling so vulnerable in a system that's, a bit broken at the
Mm.
moment. I know we've kind of paused, haven't we, around your experience, but I actually think it would be quite a good time to just look at a couple of facts for postpartum psychosis, because you brought up the leading cause of death, and that's always a real shocker,
Mm.
and the amount of babies that enter the world each year. But it's 1 to 2 in every 1,000 births that result in postpartum psychosis, and that's around 1,200 women experiencing postpartum psychosis each year in the UK alone, which is
Mhm.
a big number. So why are we not talking about, this more? And
Yeah.
and also it comes to a surprise to people still that it can happen to women with no previous mental illness, and it surprises families. And um, that's a really significant thing, because I think there are still assumptions and stigma attached to conditions that, oh, it's only people that have had it before that get it. It doesn't discriminate, this condition, at all.
No. No, and I think, yeah, it can be such, like you said, it's such a shock for, I think, not only the mum, but the families to be what is going on? I think my husband asked the psychiatrist when I was admitted to the mother and baby unit, like, what's going on? Like, will she get better? And she had to reassure him, like,
So
yeah, she
scary.
will get better. She will come back to herself, but it will take time. It will take medication to kick in. And she said the medication will probably take about 2 weeks. She'll probably be in psychosis for 2 weeks. And he thought,
Yeah.
what? Like 2 weeks? That's so
Yeah.
long. Like,
Yeah, it's so long, but it goes so quickly. And I
yeah.
remember that being like such a repeated conversation with families when anyone was admitted with a condition that, under section, when their capacity wasn't there. But the key golden question was always how long,
Mm,
and we could never say how long. We could always say, like, expect it to be at least a couple of weeks, but really sometimes these things take months to go over. But you can't put a number on it, and that was so difficult for families because it was the not knowing.
mm,
But yeah, just that glimmer of hope that they can get through this and they will get through this. But yeah, the ripples run far and wide when things like this happen to women
yeah.
and their families, for sure. And, it can start. And on that note, I guess it's good to mention that, usually it will start within the first few days or weeks after birth, and it does escalate quite
Yeah.
rapidly. And we always talk about contributing factors with psychosis. So there's never just one thing that causes it. There's always multiple contributing factors, and that's why it can be so hard to see sometimes. But the quicker you get some support and you start some antipsychotic medication, the quicker the recovery can be. That used to be the only thing. So one of the things we would always explore was how long. It was called a DUP, so the duration of untreated psychosis. So how long that person had had psychosis for
Hmm.
with no treatment, because if that had been a longer time, there would be likely a longer response once they had started some form of treatment.
Okay, that's really interesting.
That was something I remember when I listened to Giovanna's, and I was like, oh, I write that down to tell Jade,
Yeah.
because I know you said, I think, yeah, the lower the DUP, the quicker you do get. That was one thing we could say to families.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a bit of fact
Yeah.
sharing.
No,
So
that's really interesting because, it ideally you want to find recognize the symptoms sooner. And I don't know if I was in showing psychotic symptoms in those 4 months prior, but it was definitely a good few weeks before my first psychotic episode that I was probably showing signs of psychosis.
well, I think they can overlap, can't they? Like when you've had no sleep
Yeah.
and you feel anxious, like the tipping point between anxiety, a lot of women, like you said, worry about their baby becoming poorly, or we talk about SIDS and death and things
Mm.
like they're very real anxieties, and the tipping point between anxiety and paranoia and our thoughts becoming irrational
Mm.
within that is so thin and blurred sometimes. And it's like when you have had a screaming baby for a week or two and you go to have a shower as a mum and you've got this sore postpartum body,
Mm.
and you're in the shower and it might be the first moment that you've had to like breathe and you can hear them
Yeah.
crying and you're like, are they all right? And he'd be like, she's asleep,
Yeah.
she's fine. But you do step into these blurry zones with that postpartum experience for sure. So
Mhm.
no wonder it was hard to detect until the real acute side of it started to come out, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's kind of recognizing those early warning signs. I think
And what were they for you, Jade?
so I would say it was the early warning signs was like the confusion. So it was like confusion, but mixed with not kind of losing sense of time. So I obviously, like when
Okay.
you have a baby, you're often asked like how many times are they feeding? Like how many hours are they going in between feeds? How many poos have they done? How many wees have they done? And I just remember being so overwhelmed by that, and I couldn't really keep track of it. And I was trying to keep track of it on an app, but then I became really fixated on it. And then at the same time was my intrusive thoughts were coming in really like thick and fast, and they were becoming really
Right.
loud. And I was so afraid to say what they were because I was worried what would happen to Penelope. Would she be taken away from me?
Yeah.
And then it was probably the sleep deprivation. It was like not being able to sleep. So that was a real like early warning sign. Um, because I just,
And just in the sense of being like too
yeah,
wired.
like I just couldn't switch off. I couldn't switch my
Yeah.
brain off. And then when it got really
Mm.
bad was when and I think this is quite a common sign of psychosis as well, is the, the not needing to sleep. So you don't feel like you need to sleep. So you're, like you said, like you're wired and you kind of feel superhuman, and you can,
But
yeah,
extraterrestrial.
you can do anything. And yeah, I would say those were like the early warning signs. And then when I look back and I think, okay, yeah, you were definitely in psychosis a few days before people actually were like, this
Yeah.
is what it is. Um, I was losing I was losing sense of time, but then I was really fixated on time as well. And I would believe that if I didn't do things within a time frame, something bad would happen. So, for example,
Okay.
my mum was over, and my sister was pregnant at the time, and she was about to have her 12-week scan. And I was convinced, my mum was like, right, go and have a shower. So I went up to have a shower, but I was like, I completely lost the ability to know how to do things. And then I had a clock in our
Yeah.
bathroom, and I was looking at the clock, and I was like, if you don't shower and are out of the shower by this time, something bad is going to happen to that baby, and that baby's going to die.
Right.
And I was so
Right.
fixated on it. But because I was so stressed, I couldn't physically shower. And so then I
Yeah.
think it got to that time and I hadn't showered, and I ran downstairs and I was like, Mum, please phone Abby, find out if the baby's okay. And she was like, she did. And I think I was panicking my mum, because my mum was like, what's going on? And
Yeah.
she did. And because I said, I just feel like something bad is going to happen. And she phoned her and she was like, she's absolutely fine. And I remember my sister came over that afternoon with the scan photo, and I just remember just feeling so relieved. And
Yeah.
I bless her, she she led with me. She was like, you need to get some sleep, Jade. And I was like, okay. And she like just hugged me and let me go to sleep. um and at that point, the only way that I was able to go to sleep was if somebody was with me.
You'd almost like reverted back to, yeah. I was just thinking about your mum, because you talk about your mum quite a lot
mm,
in the episode that you did, and you alluded to it at the end of the episode about. I mean, if you're lucky enough to have your mum in the postnatal section, I look back now and I'm like, I don't know what I would have done without her. But also, your mum must have gone on, or not, would have gone on her own journey with, you're her baby. I always remember my mum saying, yeah, she's beautiful, but how are you?
Oh.
You're my baby. And I remember you gain a whole new level of appreciation and love for your mum, don't you, when you become a mum?
Yeah.
And yeah, that just must have been such a huge thing for her to see you going through that.
Yeah. And she was probably one of the only people that I would like listen to as well,
Yeah.
because I mean, I said it in Giovanna's podcast, like, I hated my husband.
Yeah, and that's really common
Is
actually
it?
for anyone with psychosis, for you to we'd always see them come in a bit worried and scared, and like obviously there has to be like a next of kin agreement with the sectioning, which is such a contrasting feeling, you know, when you love someone and you're just reassuring them that they're doing the right thing. We would then always mostly see patients turn on their loved ones, because it's like, why have you've put me in here and you've done this, and again, like they're the closest people to you, so of course it's so easy for you to apply your irrational thoughts in the one thing that is a rational thing, but you can't, you know, see that at that
Yeah.
time. And I always used to say to families with delusional thinking and paranoia, I always used to say to them, try not to challenge them when, like, at this point,
Yes.
because they're so sure about their thoughts, as sure as we are that we've got 10 fingers, if you've got all your
Yeah.
fingers. But like, there's no point. You kind of had to say, wait, you just need the medication to kick in, and then you'll start seeing glimmers of her coming back, and she will get back there. But right now, you've got to kind of try your best to ignore everything that she's saying, because she won't mean it, and this is, you know, this is the illness. But and there was always like some work with the families just not to challenge delusional thinking, because it would just distress the person further.
Yeah, and I remember that feeling so intensely as well. Like, I remember thinking, like,
Yeah.
because my husband, he dealt with, like, when I would say that I hated him and wanted a divorce, he dealt with that so well. But when it came to my delusions and thinking a certain way, he would sometimes challenge that. And that's where I would get so frustrated with him, and I'd get so angry. And
that's totally natural for him,
yeah,
because it must be so hard being on the other side, mustn't
yeah.
it?
And he said it was really difficult because I would be in the psychosis, but then I would snap out of it and I'd be back. He'd be like, I'd
Right.
see a glimmer of you, and then you'd go back into the psychosis, and it was like a glaze had come over and you just weren't there.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think as well, I just really struggled because like with my husband, because I felt that you know, these 4 months, I'd tried so hard to ask for help. I was like, I'm clearly struggling. And I just felt that my husband had like missed all of these signs. And rightly or wrongly, I put the blame onto him for a long time, like, of being like, why didn't you advocate for me more? You know, it was hard as well. Like, he was out at work 5 days a week, working long hours. And I just felt,
Well, life
yeah,
carries
and I
on.
just felt really alone at home, and just completely lost, and didn't really know.
And that's a normal postpartum experience anyway, for someone who is, you know, when you've had those 2 weeks of the bubble, your partner goes back to work, and it's so natural for feelings of resentment and loneliness to crop up anyway, let alone within
Yeah.
you know, an
Yeah.
illness.
And I think that even if you haven't struggled postnatally with your mental health, like, I think it's quite common for you to really dislike your husband because
It's easy to get rage, for sure. The maternal rage,
yeah.
that's a whole other episode.
Oh my God, yeah, massively. But I just remember, like, just watching him walk out of the door in the morning, and I'm like,
Yeah.
this hasn't changed for you. Like, why do you get to go to work? Like, you know, my boobs are leaking. This baby doesn't want to be put down.
Yeah.
I'm still bleeding. Like, all of these things. And I'm like,
Yeah.
but you just go
Yeah.
to work, and then you come home and you're like,
I remember that feeling so well, and it was COVID. We
Yeah.
went into lockdown, like, 5 days after having Albert,
Mm.
and I remember Lloyd was actually able to work from home because he'd launched his, like, the online side of his business. So, like, the back bedroom was, like, his office
Mhm.
during COVID, and he'd come out, like, dressed, like, to get some lunch, and I'd be like my hair was, like, unwashed. Like you said, I had dry milk everywhere.
Yeah.
My boobs were, I hadn't showered. I hadn't even had a sip of tea, let alone lunch.
Yeah.
And I was like, and it was like, I remember saying to my mum, "Oh my God, I could kill him." And she was like, "You can't do that. Like, he's got to work and earn money." And I was like, "It's so hard though." But yeah, that was a real thing. And it was absolutely shoved in your face during COVID because
Mm.
you do that. Or you get a bit
Yeah.
jealous and a bit resentful.
Mhm.
And it is unfair really for the woman,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, we did get the raw end of the deal really in terms of the
Yeah.
load.
And I think it's, we're just expected just to get on with it and not talk about
Mm,
those feelings. Like, I'd say to my friends now, like, I'm one of the only ones of my friends from school, my group of friends from school that's had a baby. And I was only out for dinner with a couple of them the
yeah.
other night with their partners. And I just said, just you guys, like, when you do come round to having babies, just be prepared. Like, they will hate you. I said this to like their partners. It's like,
Yeah. It's
they will.
hard.
And like, they don't want to hate you. You don't want to feel that way. It's just,
No.
I guess it's just part of it.
We were talking about early warning signs,
Yes.
weren't
Yeah.
we? So you said
Yeah.
about the lack of sleep and not needing sleep
Yeah.
and only being able to sleep with
Yeah.
family.
Yeah. So that when my sister had the scan, I think that was the day before. Was it the day before? It was the day before I was admitted to the MBU. So we still didn't really
Right.
know what was going on for me. My sister did say to my parents, like, I think she might have postpartum psychosis.
Really?
And yeah, so she'd kind of like was looking into it a bit. And I remember it.
Right. Because there's not many in the UK, is there? Just so people are aware, with the mother and baby units, they're quite often full, and they're obviously specialist inpatient units where mums can go with their babies
Yeah,
during treatment. So you stay with your
yeah.
baby, and it's obviously they're amazing environments for you to recover and not have huge impact with bond and obviously the safest thing for mum and baby as well. But
Mm.
it can sometimes women get placed quite far away from home. Was yours near or
Yeah, so our nearest one was Bournemouth, so that was about an hour away. So
okay? So still
it's
quite a drive for the family
yeah,
then to visit.
yeah. So yeah, it was it was a drive. And I was really lucky that when I was there, like my husband and my parents, they alternated coming to see me. So every day I did have a visitor, and
Wow.
I know that that's not the case always for mums, but yeah, it was, I think the day before I had my first psychotic episode, it was definitely apparent that something more was going on. It wasn't, I'd been diagnosed with postnatal depression by the doctor and prescribed antidepressants. And as well, interestingly, so where I've had support from the peer support workers at Action on Postpartum Psychosis, the charity,
Mm.
I
Mm.
spoke to someone from there and just kind of told her about my story. And she explained that if you are showing signs of psychosis and you are prescribed an antidepressant, sometimes that can trigger psychosis.
Make it worse. Yeah. Yeah.
And it was about, I think I was on the medication for maybe like 2 or 3 weeks. And then that's when I was really,
Brought it to a
yeah.
head.
So I wonder whether that had something to do
Yeah.
with it. Like, we'll never know. Um, and I think that's why,
I'm so surprised at that point as well that was another missed opportunity. You'd had a doctor assess you to say, I think you've got X, Y, or Z
mhm,
prescribed medication, and you weren't referred to perinatal mental health team at that point either. Like, there are still risks with women with conditions like that so early on.
yeah,
Like, it
yeah.
blows my mind.
And I think, yeah, it's just, like you said, like it is mind blowing that what
Yeah.
it was over the phone as well. It was just because of it being COVID. it was just like, yep, you've got
Yeah.
depression. I'll prescribe you this medication. You can go pick it up tomorrow and hopefully you'll start to feel better. But it's like, where's
Yeah.
that emotional support of someone to talk to?
Checking. Yeah.
Um, and
Mm.
yeah, so it was definitely a tough couple of weeks following that. And I did feel like I was getting better, but then I think that's when the mania started to kick in and I was feeling
Yeah.
like elated and I felt like, no,
Yeah.
I can do this and I'm
Conquer the
yeah,
world.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I would have manic outbursts at home and I'd be dancing to Beyonce in the kitchen, like, but very erratically, but no one was
Yeah.
seeing it because I was at home on my own. And
Yeah.
I'd be, Penelope would wake up in the night and I'd have to try and rock her to sleep, but then I'd be like dancing around the landing. Like,
Yeah, I think not a lot of people know about that kind of the way that psychosis and bipolar or affective disorders can present is that the person's not necessarily distressed all the time. They
hmm
can have like the best time of their lives when it's like
yeah,
euphoria. I can remember on the wards women laughing and stripping off naked
yeah,
and running down the hallways like woo, like they were okay. It was
yeah,
again at that time, although it was really sad, it was the families that were just like, what is
yeah,
but yeah, but also, on the flip side, how utterly vulnerable you
yeah,
are when you are like that. But mania is normally kind of what people remember the most when they look back.
mm,
And obviously that you can get hallucinations and delusions and extreme confusion. But yeah, do you remember that more manic, joyful part of the symptoms
yeah,
for
yeah,
you?
I definitely do. I think this is also something that I really want to educate people around psychosis because when you think
Mm.
of when someone says, oh, they're such a psycho or they're so psychotic or like it's really
Mm.
negative. And when I hear that now, it really hits
Mm.
differently
Mm.
because I'm
Mhm.
like, but I wasn't I wasn't aggressive when I was going through the postpartum psychosis. Like I was actually really happy and I was singing a lot
Yeah.
and yeah, there were times that I was really distressed and I didn't really know what was going on and when I was in the unit I thought that I'd killed Penelope and I was having all these delusions around that and I was
Distressing
yeah,
side of
yeah,
it.
and
Yeah.
I thought that I needed to die and there was a really dark side, but and I remember
Mm.
coming out of the psychosis and having that diagnosis and being like, "Oh my gosh, like I was psychotic. But what did I do?" Like because that I didn't remember a lot of it as well.
Yeah, we used to get quite a lot of patients who were quite traumatized by the fact that they
Yeah.
didn't remember. And they felt like it almost created even more
Yeah.
paranoia when they were better because they were like, I don't think my family are telling me. Or
Mhm.
you'd have to really pick and choose what you did share with patients about when they were unwell because really, like, what is the good of telling them? But it's an intimidating and daunting and scary thought not remembering as well, right?
Yeah, because it's the way that I explain it is like being drunk and like you just you
Yeah.
kind of don't really understand. You can't remember what was like. Did I actually do that? Like what was that?
Yeah.
And yeah, I remember saying to the staff at the MBU like, was I aggressive? Like what was I like? And they said, Jade, you were lovely. We never once worried about you being of harm to Penelope. Like you were always really caring towards her and
Mm.
you were just really unwell. And there was definitely a reassurance in that to know that I
Mm.
was so unwell, but I still managed to care for Penelope. And I think that
That's incredible.
that is such a big importance and like shining the light on the MBUs and how important that is to keep the mum and baby together because where my delusions were that I thought I'd killed her, if we were then separated that would have been even worse because I wouldn't have been
Fed into it.
I wouldn't have been able to see her. So they're incredible places. And, you know, I
Yeah.
quite a few mums message me and say that there's talks about them going into a mother and baby unit, but they're really scared. And I just try and explain to them that it's not what you see. Like,
Everything will be
yeah,
okay.
like the
Yeah.
way that it's portrayed in the media, like it's not like that. These
Mhm.
places are designed to be as homely as possible. They are
Yeah.
there to get you better and maintain that bond with your baby. And it's for mums to know. And if any mum is listening to this and is talk about them going into a mother
Yeah.
and baby unit, or they're worried, or and they're wanting to reach out for
Yeah.
help, but they're worried that if they do, that this is what will happen. I don't ever want people to feel scared of that, because accepting that you need help is such a
Yeah.
sign of strength. And
It's
it
freeing.
is, and it actually makes you, I think it speaks volumes as to what an amazing mum you are if you ask for the
Mm.
help. But it's not easy. It's not easy to sit there and tell someone that
No.
you're struggling, because I think we put this immense
No.
pressure on ourselves, don't we? Like when we're a first time mum as
Yeah.
well.
And yeah, and anticipatory anxiety's the worst thing as a mum and a person, and the reality is never as bad as you think it's going to be.
Mm,
And you made me think there, it's incredible when you put yourself on a platform with your experience and you share and you have people contacting you. Like when Arlo was born, there was nothing out there about his condition, nothing. And I found that so hard. And now, there is stuff out there. There's podcasts, there's forums, there's, a community WhatsApp group that we've now got with 31 mums across the UK in it. And the amount of amazing messages that I've had saying, thank you so much for this. Or like I literally had a mum contact me yesterday who lives like half an hour away, who is really struggling. She's just had the same diagnosis. And just being able to have that really open and honest conversation about, I was like, by the way, you don't need to pretend to be okay. I was on the floor when I found out. Like
mm,
you know, it's such a powerful thing to be able to do. And I don't know if you've got to this point yet, but you have to really look after yourself within that role as well.
mm,
And you have to sometimes be like, I'm not in a position where I can reply to that today because I'm in my head a little bit more today, or it can be a little bit triggering
yeah.
sometimes. So yeah, that's my learning, is that it's a really incredible position to be in. And I couldn't see it any other way, and being an advocate for, you know, him and his condition like you are with this, but you have to kind of protect yourself within that as well. And yeah, but there is no better feeling than being able to say it will be okay. That's the first thing I can say to you, right? Like it
Mm.
is, yeah, it's amazing, and it takes a certain kind of person to be able to do that, in my eyes.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. And
Yeah.
it helps you, doesn't it?
It does.
Mm.
It does. Yeah. It helps you. I think it's quite a helpful. You have to be in a certain place post
Yeah.
experience, don't you, to be able to do that in the first
Yeah.
place. So I think there's been quite a lot of reflection around, I think I'm a lot better. Like I'm a lot stronger. I feel like I'm in a very different place. And that's not to say, like you, that with trauma and some experiences, you won't have days where you're like, I'm really sad that that happened to
Mm.
me. But
Yeah.
like, being, and then they're the days where you just, I'm not going to do that
Yeah.
today, not as much. But yeah, it's an incredible feeling, and it does help you notice how far you've come in your journey.
Mhm. Yeah.
Talking about that
Mhm.
journey, so how long did you spend at the mother and baby unit, Jade?
I was there for a month in total.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then when you left there, were you step down to like a community mental health team
So I was still
that would see you
under,
at home,
yeah, so
or?
I was under the perinatal team still, and I would have the care coordinator come out and visit me. And then I had a psychologist from the ward that would come out, and I would have sessions with her. And then I
Right.
think once Penelope was like 18 months or two, I was then transferred over to the community mental health team, and I'm still under
Yeah.
them today.
Great, that's good to hear.
Mhm.
And how do you talk a lot on your platform now around recovery and the importance of exercise and general well-being,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a lot of overlap with us needing to put effort into that, even as mums, which we don't get.
Yeah.
It's so hard. But also when you are, as you explained, it's very, you will always have to work quite hard to maintain your wellness,
Yeah.
right? So how do you rebuild trust in your mind after having something like psychosis?
I think it's really, really hard. And I would say the recovery has been harder than the actual psychosis.
A lot of people say that.
Because typically with psychosis, you then tend to get depression afterwards, and that can feel really heavy, and almost like you're walking through treacle, and you're just like every day is just
Mm.
a real challenge. But it probably wasn't until my relapse that I was like, okay, I really need to do things differently now. I need to make sure that I'm making time for myself. So if that's exercise or making sure that I'm eating
The
well.
way that you release.
Yeah, because I think as well, like one of the big things with medication is particularly like the one that I'm on, which is olanzapine, you just feel hungry all the time. And
Yeah, I was going to say you have to work. Like there was always weight gain in
yeah,
patients with the Lansbury. It does increase your hunger, and that's hard.
yeah. So at my heaviest, I probably, after my relapse, I gained about 4 stone.
Wow.
And
Okay.
that was a challenge in itself as to how I
Mm.
navigated that. Um,
Mm.
and yeah, I think for me, it's been the changes that I've seen the most have been since I've every morning, like I've just got a very strict morning routine, and it is so much
Hmm.
easier now that Penelope's older. And I really want
Yeah.
to highlight that things for me are so much easier now because I just have the one, and she's at school
Yeah.
now. At the time, she was doing 3 days at nursery. So I had the ability to do things like go to the gym when she was at nursery or now at school. I'm self-employed, so I'm a nail technician, so I can work my hours around what I want to do. So I'm very privileged in the
Yeah.
position where I'm not tied to an office job.
Hmm.
But I think it's been as well, it's communicating with my husband. And that hasn't been easy at times. Like our relationship has really gone through it, and we've had to work at it through
Yeah.
therapy together. And we've worked with like 2 different therapists. And it's communicating with each other as to when things are getting a bit too much for either of our ends, and having to
Hmm.
kind of be like, okay, so I'm struggling here, so would you be able to kind of help out here? And I want,
Voicing it.
yeah, and it's having those open conversations and being like, okay, well, I want to go to the gym these times this week. Can you make sure you're at home with Penelope before school or whatever that may be? But I think communicating with your partner or your whoever you've got to help you, it's really taking up that help. I think
Yeah.
we're so good at when someone's like, oh, would you like some help with this? And you're like, oh, no, I'm fine. Like,
You can
yeah.
manage.
Whereas actually it's saying, do you know what? Like, mum, I do need some help.
Great.
Or,
When can you come?
yeah, like, or your sister or your friend, like, if they've, ask a friend or some to take your baby for a walk
Yeah.
for an hour whilst you go to the gym or,
Yeah. It's the practical help so key. And I think as they get older as well, it's easy just to get cover for things that you have to go to,
yeah,
like parents'
yeah.
evening or a wedding. And actually, Lloyd and I, it's taken us many years to learn that we we had like a spa morning a couple of weeks ago that a family had bought us after Arlo had a hard time in hospital.
Mm,
They really kindly bought us this gift, and we were like, it's so nice just to come and do something, like do nothing together,
yeah.
and just learning like that. I really rung true to me there, and I think that's something that we could all do better around communication. Like we're not good at being like, I'm feeling really overwhelmed with this, it would really help me if you did this, and how powerful that can be.
Hmm.
But yeah, we made a bit of a pact to try and we were like, let's put £10 a week away in a wellbeing pot, and every 2 to 3 months we'll go and do a morning, just you and I doing
Oh, I
something, like
love
something that
that.
takes us out of our normal routine or the dishwasher or
Yeah.
the mundane stuff.
Oh,
But it's taken us a long time to learn that actually you need that
yeah.
time together as well as separately as
Yeah. And that
well,
it's
for sure.
okay. Like that it's okay
Yeah,
to
and
want
that's,
that.
like,
Yeah.
needed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the gym has been massively like helpful for me, but not even like, I've my body hasn't really changed hugely. Like the weight gain is really like it's really hard to lose the weight. It's more mentally. It's given me that structure. It's given me that little community and like I feel like part of a team. Like I always
Yeah.
do a circuits class on a Friday
Mm.
morning, and I just love it. I love going and seeing the people. Like, they're all really motivating. I mean, I'm absolutely dead. I'm completely dead by the end of it, and I'm like, oh my god.
So impressive you can do that. I think I would die, literally.
Honestly, I look at myself in the mirror afterwards, and I'm looking at these other girls, and they look pristine. I'm like, have we just done the same workout?
I go to a pump class now, and there are people, like, older than my mum in front of me
Mm.
pumping, like, double my weight, and I'm like, "Will I get back there one day? I'm not sure, but I can't do that now."
But
So, yeah, exercise is a really key one for you,
yeah,
and I just wondered, I wanted to ask a little bit more about, obviously, you had your relapse a couple of years
yeah,
ago, and I guess there was more learning from that moving forward. And they call it relapse prevention, don't
yeah.
they? Around, right, I know if I do that, it pushes that. But did you recover quite quickly from that relapse because you knew what had worked before, or?
Um, it was, it wasn't quick, but it was definitely easier in terms of like I wasn't having to kind of learn what I'd been through. It wasn't like this completely
Yeah.
new thing, and it was almost a bit of a wake up call to be like, okay, you need to do things differently. So
Yeah.
yeah, I would say that the recovery wasn't wasn't quicker, but it was a better recovery. It's
Yeah.
meant that I had to work more with the community mental health team to make sure that we had a crisis plan in place of, talking
Yeah.
about what are the early warning signs, what are my triggers, and being able to put things in place that I felt knowing that I've got that is like, I just feel I'm so much less likely to have another relapse
Yeah.
because the community mental
Yeah.
health team know everything.
Yeah. Your
Yeah,
signs.
I'm now aware. Like, I didn't even know that I could have had a relapse. I thought the only way I would have psychosis again was by having
Mm.
another baby. So, and I
Yeah.
don't want people.
You said about recovery being harder. I think that's the work that's so key afterwards as well, because people think, "Oh, God, I'm through that. I've got to try and deal with that now." But actually, the real work starts then in terms of you need to. You used to have that conversation as people left hospital that you need to realize that this is something that you're more vulnerable to get again,
Yeah.
and you've got to do, you've got to continue medication for it, say at least 6 months, but a lot longer than that, usually, potentially for life.
Mm,
A lot of people don't realize that, it's not like when you have antibiotics and the illness goes, you finish antibiotics and you're like back to normal. It's quite, it is an intrinsic vulnerability that you're going to have for
yeah,
life.
definitely. And I think it's really important that the people around you are aware of that as well. And for them to know
Yeah.
your triggers and what the warning signs are. Like my husband he's actually really good at noticing before I even notice.
Yeah.
Which is really, really helpful because he'll just be like, oh, okay, why don't you focus on getting an early night tonight or, go have a bath or whatever that might be. Which is actually quite funny now because
Mm.
I think back to when my health visitor told me to have a bath and that would fix it.
The
But
rage, did you get a bit triggered by
yeah,
that one then?
I didn't have a bath for a really long time. And I think it was partly because I was so like, I just hate
I don't
yeah,
want a
I
bath.
don't want to have a bath. Whereas now I can enjoy them, and they
Yeah.
definitely do serve a purpose, like to
Yeah, they are
relax.
good.
But yeah, I think it's just it's being really in tune, and I think I've learned to accept that this is just part of my life now. Whereas before my
Yeah.
relapse, I think I just wanted to just not forget that it had
Move on.
happened, but I was kind of like, that's too hard for me to,
Too much.
I didn't really want people to know. I was worried that if they did know, what they would think of me. And whereas now I'm just like, I tell anyone and everyone, well, I am in a way.
Yeah, you're proud of
Yeah.
it. But it's so multidimensional. Like, again, we've already said it, haven't we? Like, you've had a baby, you've got a new body, you've got pain, you've got to keep a human alive, you've got COVID in your case,
Mm,
then you've got an enduring illness to get through. And then it's like, you deserve that time to just get on with it.
mm,
But I can totally see why you would worry about, you don't want people to think that you're any different now. Or I think your family and friends have seen such a huge change, you of course would naturally worry that they're going to think of you differently. And but I think that's such a natural response,
mm. Yeah.
and they must be so proud of you now that you can just be like, yeah, this happened, and this is real life,
Yeah.
and this happens to 1,200 women a
Yeah.
year, and let's talk about it. Like, that's amazing.
Yeah. I think, they definitely are. I think they have been worried at times because they worry what people, like, obviously you're opening yourself up for people's opinions.
Yeah.
But I've been really fortunate that I haven't really had that many people say anything negative. And if anybody has, I just see it as more of a them problem.
I always say that. It's like, if someone makes a comment nowadays that's negative or derogatory or hurtful, I flip it back on them and I think it's a you
Yeah.
problem. And actually, if you don't have the knowledge and the
Yeah.
insight, or clearly you haven't had anyone in your life that's gone through anything like
Hmm.
this, otherwise there's no way in hell that you'd be saying anything like that. Like, you can easily make it a not you thing,
Yeah.
right? But just drawing upon moving forward, and I'm sure there might be women listening to this that resonate with some of what you said, or might have had some of the experiences, or having some of the experiences that you've described.
Hmm.
What would you want if there was a mum listening at 3 a.m.,
Mm.
because we all love a podcast or an Amazon
Oh my
order
God.
as we're feeding in the night when
Amazon
they're
order,
little,
yeah.
maybe scared by her own
Hmm.
thoughts, worried, anxious? What would you want them to hear right now?
That this doesn't last forever. To not underestimate like how hard motherhood is, and allowing yourself space and time to heal from what you're going
Mm.
through, to reach out for help if you are struggling, and to know that by asking for help doesn't make you any less of a mum. It actually makes you a better mum.
Yeah.
And yeah, just, I think, slide into my DMs and tell me your darkest thoughts, because I can tell you I can probably relate.
Yeah, nothing will
No,
surprise
no,
me.
no, no.
Yeah.
And also, I really
No.
want to stress like where they can go for help. So, speak to your health
Yeah.
visitor and really advocate for yourself.
Yeah.
Ask about the perinatal mental health team. There are charities, amazing
Yeah.
charities. There's Pandas. They've got a WhatsApp support service. You've got online forums, face-to-face groups. If you've had postpartum psychosis and you're struggling to come to terms with it, you've got Action on Postpartum Psychosis. They're an amazing charity that can provide support. And then Samaritans and Mind UK, they're great helplines. I mean, I used Samaritans myself, and just someone to listen.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you don't want to talk to somebody that you're close to. I think it's,
Yeah. No, there's a lot of power in speaking. That's one of the reasons I create Postnatal Minds, is because there's so much therapeutic benefit of speaking to someone who's totally unlinked to your friends and
yeah,
family at that time, and beyond that time. And I think it's important. We've spoken a lot about the failures in your care today, but I think it's also important for us to emphasize that, your first port of call can also be your
yeah,
GP. You can, I mean, there's so much online nowadays as well, but really, if you're feeling like you're in a crisis, you can always go to A&E,
yes,
you can call an ambulance. The important message here is seek
yeah,
help, and there are forums and places and ways for you to get that if you're worried, or you're worried about a family member. And hopefully, algorithms and hashtags like that will come from podcasts like this,
Mhm.
and the other things that you're doing will only support people to get there and get that help like you did. And yeah, and you're an amazing example of how you can get through it. And I know that getting through it is quite a strange term sometimes, because like you said, it is an ongoing journey.
Mhm.
But yeah, thank you so much for sharing your experiences. And yeah, and please keep in
Yeah,
touch. And
thank
Jade,
you.
where can people find you?
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram and TikTok. My handle's at Jade A Lloyd, Lloyd.
Thank you so much for coming on the
Thank you.
podcast.
I've got to rush off to my daughter's assembly now. She's got,
Oh, the best way to
yeah,
finish a
she's
week.
got her swimming certificate, so she's going to stand up at the front.
Oh, don't. I love that. That's the perfect way to end the
I know.
week. Thank you so
Oh.
much.